Hey guys, I'm excited to have a conversation today with my good friend Alex Pardo. Alex is based in Miami, and it's a guy that when I was starting out I followed, and he always added value to me and provided great content. And when few months ago, maybe last year, he reached out to me and asked me to be on his podcast, I was very humbled and honored that now he wants to talk to me. So, Alex,
Yes.
I'm excited to have you on the call today.
Hey, I'm equally excited, if not more, Haim. I've told you this before in private, but I really enjoy our conversations. I appreciate and value our friendship. And you're somebody that I don't know if you remember this. I want to say I reached out to you about a year and a half, 2 years ago, probably a little bit over 2 years ago, because I saw you so active on Wholesaling House full-time Facebook group, always answering people's questions. I know we're going to talk a lot about today about networking and adding value. You're a shining example of that, and I'm attracted to people like that. And so I think that was kind of the catalyst of our conversations and our friendship throughout the last couple of years, man. So love what you're doing with the show and appreciate you having me.
Sounds good, man. So why don't you just tell us briefly kind of who you are, what you do, where do you live, just so people we know, again, who is Alex Pardo?
Yeah, so live here in Miami, Florida. I'm married to my wife, Natalie, and I have two little girls, a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. And, people always ask me how I get started in this business, how I kind of got to this point. I'll give you the very brief version of it because I know you know my story, but for people listening, ever since I was 10, 11, 12 years old, I grew up playing baseball, and I was always at the baseball park. I found myself buying packs of baseball cards, and essentially I would buy, sell, and trade. And I was, flipping baseball cards at a young age. I didn't even know what flipping was. And so I kind of felt like I always had that entrepreneurial gene in me. And then when I kind of fast forward, when I got to college, I think I was attracted to the allure and the prestige of being a corporate executive. So when I was around a freshman, sophomore, junior, I started to get aspirations of becoming a CEO of a Fortune 500 company.
Okay.
And so when I was a junior, I started interviewing with Johnson & Johnson, General Electric, companies like that. Ended up getting hired to GE in their financial management program. Did that for a couple of years, but it was about 3 months into the job that I'll never forget it. I was averaging probably 70, 75 hours a week, somewhere in there. And my entire job was just looking at Excel. And, I was in the financial services business. So I looked at my boss, Haim, and I looked at my boss's boss, all the way up to the CEO of consumer finance in GE. And I saw how much they worked. And I just saw a different side that I was never exposed to. And I said, I don't want to be any of those bosses. And that's when it hit me that, to create the kind of lifestyle I want, to impact the people I want to impact, I have to go out and do my own thing. Didn't really know what that looked like. So I ended up buying Carlton Sheets, no money down. That was my introduction to real estate, thinking that you could only assume loans. It was kind of funny. And then that led me to Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That led me to Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah.
Very common story, right? As far as how people get into the business and how they're exposed.
Yeah.
I ended up leaving that job 2 years later. I went backpacking around Europe for 3.5 months. So we visited like 53 cities in 24 countries in 3.5 months. And I was in Ibiza. A mutual friend of ours, Ray Gonzalez, sent me an email inviting me to it was called a Marketing for Deals boot camp by Dave Lindahl.
Okay.
This was happening October of 2005.
Okay.
And it was $997. I barely had that credit limit on my credit card. And it was my fork in the road moment. I was moving back to Miami. I was going to be moving into my parents' house at 25 years old, which I was slightly embarrassed by. And I knew I had to do something. I wanted to start a business, just didn't know what it was going to look like. So I ended up going to that boot camp, took a letter out of the manual, a pre-foreclosure, and about 60 days later closed my first deal, which almost replaced the salary at GE. So,
yeah. And that was the aha moment, and you never look back, kind of thing.
Yeah, it was, man. I have not looked back since then. And one of the best things that's ever happened to me is I'm glad. I don't regret anything. I'm glad I went through that experience because it showed me what I didn't want. And I was fortunate, I didn't have a family. I didn't have kids. So many, so often I have people come to me from the podcast or otherwise, and they say, I want to get into this business, but there's a fear associated with it, or I have a family, I have bills to pay. And it's difficult. It's challenging, but you only get one life to live.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if you're doing something just for money that doesn't fulfill you and makes you happy, there's something wrong with that equation.
Yeah, you have one shot at life. And again, my story is, again, I had a family and I had a lot of fears, so it was a much harder decision. So I want to talk to you about that, about the fork in the road, the decision moment, because I spoke last night in a RIA meeting, and again, probably half of the room were people with a 9-to-5 job, not happy, unfulfilled, work long hours, was Silicon Valley. So again, all the tech companies, so they work crazy hours. So what made you make the decision, other than the fact that you didn't like the work, to kind of put your credit card, because that's when people get scared, I know that I should do something, but maybe it's another person who want to get my money and run with it. Maybe it's not going to work. You have all these doubts in your head. So what's kind of the tipping point that says, I'm going for it?
I think for me, Hyman, I don't know if this answer is going to add a lot of value to people listening. I've always had the personality type to ready, fire, aim. So I've never been much of a procrastinator. Sometimes it takes me a while to get to a decision, but when I get to that decision and I commit, I go and I don't look back. And I knew that for me, the pain of moving back into my parents' house at 25 years old, was
the drive.
It was humbling. You know what I mean? It was like, I know I need to do something. And I experienced what it was like to work for somebody. And I know that wasn't God's calling for me. And I've always had ambition to make something big out of my life and to impact people. That's always been something that I have just kind of felt in my gut. For me, it's God tapping me on the shoulder saying, hey, I think each one of us have talents, gifts, unique abilities, whatever you want to call it. But yet so many people squander it away, to earn a living. And I don't judge anybody, right? But for me, I just felt like I was put on this earth to do something much bigger than just go work at a job that didn't fulfill me. You know what I mean? And so it wasn't a very hard decision. I'd be lying to you if I told you I didn't think twice about swiping that credit card. But again, I didn't have anything else to go back to. And I knew after having read 3 or 4 Robert Kiyosaki books and gone through, like, I knew I loved real estate. Like I was starting to get the taste for it. And this was an opportunity for me. And I saw it as God put this in my path for a reason. Let me take advantage. Let me dive right in.
Got it. So let's take it to the next step, because once you start, a lot of people make the decision, but then they face the challenges. It's not easy as it looks like. You face roadblocks, and they are not willing to be suck before they are great, and they quit. Because for me, it took almost a year. Again, you were lucky to get your first deal in 60 days. For me, it was over a year, because my mindset wasn't right. I was learning. I was in paralysis analysis. So what happened to you that I'm sure you faced challenges like everybody else. To kind of push through the pain when because you have this feeling that you're unconfident, you play outside your comfort zone. Again, you're getting a no, people telling you that you're a joke, provide proof of funds and you don't have it, and you start to scramble, and you have a buyer and they don't perform, and then again, you just need to have this awkward conversation with the seller. And a lot of people are not willing to go through this phase, which is essential in the process. So what for you was the kind of
I think for me, that's why personal development is something that is at my core. It's such a big part of my life. I kind of equate it to taking a shower. You do it every day. Personal development is something you always have to strengthen your mind. David Goggins, I don't know if you're familiar with him. He talks about building calluses in your mind, right? You have to you got to put yourself and strengthen your mind, strengthen your emotions, so that you can fight through a lot of the challenges, a lot of the adversity. And so for me, getting exposed to Think and Grow Rich and a lot of these personal development books, See You at the Top by Zig Ziglar is a book I read early on. I think those seeds that were planted in me, Chaim, really helped me to realize that success comes on the other side of discomfort. You know, success comes, you have to, like, I used to read a lot of biographies, and not one person that I read a biography on didn't overcome severe adversity and challenges. So I think I wasn't expecting adversity, but I kind of was. Like, I knew there was going to be roadblocks.
Yeah.
So direct mail and door knocking was how I got started in this business.
Wow.
And I got the door slammed in my face multiple times. And I remember when I first started door knocking, I had all this fear built up inside of me because it's knock, and inside I was hoping nobody was home. And I caught myself early on, like, I've already taken the necessary steps to get outside my comfort zone, follow through with it. And so I always remembered success is on the other side of discomfort. I would tell myself that over and over and over again. And I read a book, I forget what book, and there was an analogy that when you plant the seed in the soil, eventually it's going to break through the soil, this flower. It's going to start to blossom. Most people give up right before it breaks through the soil. And I was like, so it's kind of a weird analogy, but I would always think of this flower, and I would always tell myself, I'm about to break through the soil. I'm about to break through the soil. Success is on the other side of discomfort. I just kept, and I was big into positive affirmations. So every morning I had a morning ritual, and I would just repeat these things. I can do it. I can do it. I'm confident. I'm a fighter. You know, I would tell myself all these things. And I think that really helped me, you know, fight through some of the things I had to fight through.
Got it. Listen, I 100% agree. And again, for me, it was more reading the right books on mindset, listening to podcasts, and also start to hang out with people that are like you or are on the same path as you. And I think for me, and again, that would be a good segue to kind of what took me to the next level is just being a part of a mastermind. Because once you make the jump and you go all in on real estate, it starts to become lonely. Especially for me, I quit my 9-to-5 job. So all my previous friends were 9-to-5 mindset. All my family, again, I was raised by 2 employees, 9-to-5 employees. My sisters were 9-to-5 employees. All my surroundings were 9-to-5 employees. So the next step for me, it's just to put myself in rooms with other people that are like-minded. And I think you do it very well. I know that you're a part of Masterminds. And I kind of want to segue to Masterminds again. And as being, you mentioned Ray, again, it's a mutual friends, just being surrounded by people like him. I know that you're part of CG. How important was it for you? And what do you recommend to others that kind of in the same phase in the business?
Man, Chaim, so first of all, before I get to the mastermind, surrounding yourself with like-minded people that are going to uplift and encourage you is so critical to your success, regardless of what business you're in or regardless of what level of success you're aiming to achieve, whether it's in your health or, you know, if you want to be healthy, if you can immerse yourself in an environment around people that are healthy and take care of their body, you're going to naturally, it's what Ed Milet, you know, talks about raising your thermostat. You know, when you surround yourself with people that are financially, you know, that are wealthy, whether it's with their finances or emotionally, you can't, it's like the rising tide lifts all boats type of analogy. You can't help but to raise your temperature to just, you know, to uplift your standards.
You got to level up.
Yeah, but you know what? The opposite is true as well. It's why it's the bad apple syndrome. You know, you start surrounding yourself with people that are low-level thinkers or negative. It's going to infect you one way or the other. And I realized that early on, and it's interesting. It wasn't about, I think 2 years into my real estate career is when I finally understood that I needed to surround myself. I needed to pay a coach or a mentor. The first couple of years, I always saw masterminds and coaches as an expense.
Yeah.
And then I had a mindset shift, and I realized that just one idea, one nugget, something that influences me positively is a 10x, 100x return, because now I have that for the rest of my life. And then I saw it as an investment, not an expense. And I think a lot of people I connect with haven't had that mindset shift. You know, they see it as an expense. They don't see it as an investment. And then I think it was about 4 years in that I joined the Mastermind, and I've been a part of, I don't know, probably 7, 8 masterminds throughout the last 12, 13 years.
Mm-hmm.
And inevitably, Chaim, every time I go to one of those masterminds, I walk out of there thinking bigger, thinking differently, realizing I have so much more power and potential inside of me that I haven't even tapped into. And I just, man, I come back on fire. It raises my standard. And then 3 months later, I'm back there again.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't have the effect that it might to some, where they go to a seminar and they're on fire for a week, and then life gets in the way and it kind of fizzles out.
Yeah.
So that's why I just enjoy conversations with guys like you. I'm always connected to just movers, shakers, people that are not just high achievers, but that are thinking on a different level.
Yeah, 100%. And I also was thinking, the first time that it happened to me again, I was going to Extreme Freedom to Sean Terry's event. So I was going through the funnel, of course. So again, there was the $297 or the $2,000, like the $3,000, the $29.97 to be in the VIP. So there's an extra room, extra day, only with people who are willing to pay extra and be in an extra day and be in a room with also like-minded, more people who are willing to invest in themselves at the higher level.
Right.
And that was the best decision I ever made in my life.
Oh. Can I share a personal story with you just from not too long ago?
Sure.
And I'm I'm going to put myself out there. And I look back and I kick myself because I know better. And I think the same way you think. But let me give you the opposite of the story you just shared. So, and this happened to me earlier this year. Grant Cardone, probably a lot of people out there listening know who he is, was putting on his 10X Growth Con 3 in Miami.
Yeah.
So the guy filled out Marlin Stadium, 35,000 people there. I wasn't even planning on going. Last minute, Chris Chico invited me. And he said, hey, man, I'm going with some people. Chris Chico's, I know he's a mutual friend. And I said, okay, man, I'll go. You know, I wasn't really even thinking of going. So I bought the $49 ticket, right, which was all the way up there. And then I ended up just walking down and sitting much, much lower, right? And I was looking out into the VIP section. And I saw so many celebrities. I saw internet marketing celebrities, guys like Frank Kern, you know, Russell Brunson, that was a speaker. I mean, there was just all the speakers and celebrities that were not speakers were on the floor there in the front. And I want to say the tickets were like, I don't know, $5 to $10 grand to be down there, something like that. And I remember the first day looking down and seeing that and instantly thinking to myself, I screwed up. Because I know that it would have been easily worth the $5, $10 grand to pay. Because it's what Tony Robbins talks about. There's power in proximity.
Absolutely.
And man, just one connection, one relationship, one idea, one conversation. It's an infinite return. It totally changes your life. Yeah. And so, you know, that's why, like, recently my wife and I were going to Tony Robbins' Date with Destiny. And from that experience, we ended up paying, I think it was like $12,500. Like, you can't pay any more money to sit there in the front. So you're there with his mastermind group that pays $100,000 a year, and you're at the front. Like, I can't get any closer. Yeah. And I realized I wasn't going to make that mistake again because there's power in proximity. So when I hear your Sean Terry Extreme Freedom story, I think of the mistake that I just made and now how I'm rectifying it moving forward. It's so worth it. Yeah, absolutely. So I think I want to transition to networking, because a lot of people, okay, Alex, people want to be in a room with like-minded individuals. But what if I'm not at that level now that, again, I can give Alex Pardo a call and say, let's I want to pick your brain, right? And all of these requests.
let's think about adding value when you're just starting out, because a lot, again, you want to be associated with like-minded individuals, but maybe again, one person is at that level and you are here and you want to network with this guy, but this guy don't see the value of networking with you. So how can you show a value or bring yourself to the level that they will pay attention to you and kind of want to be associated with you so you can level up?
So that's such a great question. And there's a lot of different ways to answer it. And there's one way to skin a cat type of thing. There's multiple ways. What has always served me, Chaim, is that I think you have to first start by being genuine and sincere and in wanting to help that person and add value. You and I, we've had conversations about this. I saw that you posted on your private Facebook group a video not too long ago where you were kind of sharing it, and we share very similar beliefs. Too many people approach relationships with their hand out. What can you do for me? And to answer your question, if there's somebody that you want to network with that you perceive to be at a higher level, or just someone that you want to associate with, find out what's important to that person. You know, whenever I meet somebody, one of the questions sometimes I don't remember to ask, but when I do, and it's often, is, what kind of challenges do you have right now? You know, or what are some of your goals? Because I genuinely want to find out what's important to that person, and I want to see if I can help them. And so when you ask that question, I think you have to be an active listener. So many times in conversation and in communication, people are more worried about what they're going to say, and they're trying to formulate how they want to respond, and they're not actively listening. They're not engaging. So I think that's the first step is, number one, genuinely wanting to help and being sincere about it. Number two, you got to be an active listener. But if I can't have a conversation with somebody I want to meet or somebody I want to associate with, I'm going to do some research on that person. I'm going to do some digging. With social media, you can understand what's important to someone by how they communicate and what they put out there.
Yeah.
And I'm always looking for ways to add value. It could be a testimonial. I can easily create a testimonial about the impact Tony Robbins has had on my life and figure out a way to get it to him. Now, it's probably going to get lost in the shuffle. It may or may not, but I'm going to look for multiple ways to genuinely add value to that person by finding out what's important to them, finding out what they're about. I'll give you another example. Last year, Eric Stark and I host we do it once a year, a mastermind, and we donate the proceeds to a charity. We wanted to connect with Frank McKinney. And so we reached out to Frank McKinney and said, hey, we're interested in donating money to Haiti in your name. Right. And we got on a phone call with Frank McKinney within days. Like from the first message to the time we were on a call with him, it wasn't even 48 hours. Why? Because we led with value. You know, we led with, hey, those are just a few examples. I can go on and on, but I'll let you jump in.
I love it. So I guess the basic concept is add value first before you ask something in return. So again, it's the Gary Vaynerchuk, again, give. Jab, right hook. Jab, right hook. So if I want to add value to Alex, I'm not going to tell him, again, give me 30 minutes of your time, because that's an ask, as opposed to, hey, Alex, I saw that you supported this cause last year. I would love to get involved and make a donation in their name. Like you mentioned, that's a great idea. Send them a book that it's in alignment of their core values. Again, Alex did it recently, and I love that. Again, we had a conversation and we spoke about about adding value, and sure enough, he sent me a book about the giftology. So this is just small, minor thing. Add value first, and then after you build a relationship and get the attention, this is when you can expect to reciprocate and have the other person give to you. And here's the other thing, Chaim, is that there's people that I know I've added value to, and I don't expect anything in return. You know, and so I think that is so important, and it's part of the conversation that is missed at times. Is when you're part of being genuine and sincere is not expecting something in return. Although look, we're human. Like if you want to associate with someone and you want to connect with them, you may want something from that person. But I think when you can kind of suspend that and you just put them first
and not expect something in return and not set up that improper expectation, it changes everything, man, because now you come across even more authentic. You know what I mean? It's interesting, Haim, and I'm sure you've experienced this. I get hit up every now and then with people leading with value, but I can tell because of how they approach it, there's an undertone of, hey, this is what I really want. You know what I mean?
It's strategic adding value.
Very strategic. And look, hey man, like it doesn't bother me. I can just tell. I think I have a pretty good nose for when someone's being authentic versus not.
Yeah.
And I'm much more inclined to connect with and give whatever they might be interested in when I know it's authentic. And so I think if you give with no expectation of something in return, it's just so much better.
Yeah. And also another way that I like is you raise your value, and this is how you get an attention from others. And this is by putting value and content and going on big groups in the same industry, and you start to add value and answer questions, and people start to say, this is a good guy, and he knows what he's talking about. And then all of a sudden you reach out to this person and he says, yeah, I've seen you commenting. Again, you know what you're talking about, and now you kind of raise your value, and now you can have a better conversation with this person.
You nailed it. Haim, our friendship, I talked about that at the top of the show. Our friendship was me seeing how much value you were adding on Facebook, and you do such a phenomenal job of that I admire you to, and I knew that you were just giving value, and you never asked for anything in return. And you built this audience, and now you raised your value. And look, that's how we connected. And I'm sure you've connected with many, many others by doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And also mutual association. That's also key. So I know Alex, and Alex know Ray, and Ray know, again, Joe Evangelisti, and John Evangelisti know Mark Evans, and Mark Evans know. So this is how you kind of, the spider web of connection that elevate you. So
That's right. I think something else that I'll throw out there that has really helped me is, and when I say help me, not that I've gotten a bunch of stuff, although I have, but it's more the relationship. That's really, to me, the values in the relationship. I mean, I genuinely mean this. For me, I'm more interested in strengthening and deepening a relationship and a friendship. And sometimes I send a random video. I'll create a video on my phone, and I'll say, hey, look, I just thought of you. I know that this was important to you back then. I'm not sure if it's still on your radar, but here's a resource, or here's something I recently heard that I think could help you. Or I'll send a group text to you and somebody else, and I say, hey, you guys got to connect because I think there's some synergies here. I think you can help each other's businesses. I'm not looking for anything. I don't even want anything, but I think naturally my brain is always thinking about how to connect people.
Yes.
And I think being a connector is a huge, huge way to add value.
Absolutely. I huge believe, I think it's a great strategy. It's just connecting two individuals that you know can add value. And I've done it. I even done it with you.
You did. I was just going to say, man, I can't tell you how grateful I am for a key connection you made. And there's nothing that you can ask that I wouldn't want to do for you. You know what I mean? I mean, you've added value to me in so many ways, and you're a perfect example of being a connector.
Yeah. So I want to shift again. Right now, we spoke about great mindset, relationship, adding value, networking. It's all great and essential in this business, but we want to move more to a tactical question. I know that you operate in one of the most competitive markets in Miami, and wanted to ask, because a lot of people, when they're starting, they are tight on budget, they don't have team members, and the main goal is just to do their first deal so they can keep going, reinvest in their business and their education. So what would you recommend if you have only, let's say, $1,000 and you still have a 9-to-5 job, and you're willing to put in the work. You have the sweat equity that you're willing to do, and you are with a limited budget, maybe $1,000 per month. How would you use it in order for you to get your first check?
Yeah. So I'll give you some specifics, but first, let me talk to you about how I'd structure the day. If I had a 9-to-5, let's assume I had a family, right? And let's say my kids were up at I don't know, 6:30 in the morning, which I think is pretty common. You know, you take them to school.
Yeah.
I'd be up at 4 a.m. every single day. 4 a.m. I'd be up at 4, and from 4 to 6, I'd put in 2 hours every single day. I'd work during my lunch hour, right? So let's just assume you can get another half hour in there. That's 2.5 hours I have put into my business now while I'm maintaining my job. And then I'd spend time with family. When my wife, when my kids were asleep, let's just say that was 9 o'clock, whatever that, I put in another 2 to 3 hours. So I would operate on 5 hours of sleep, roughly, right? Yeah. And you can modify and adjust this, but the point is that I would easily get in 5 to 7 hours a day on my business. And it's going to require, this is where having a why, this is where having a strong purpose and a reason is going to get you through, because you're going to be tired, right? What would I do if forget the $1,000, you took that away from me, right? And assuming I had a phone and internet access, right? And you dropped me into a random city. For me, I got started direct mail and door knocking, right? So here's one of the things I would do. Going back to networking, I would surround myself. I'd find out where the best meetups and/or RIAs, and RIAs are difficult and meetups are difficult because oftentimes it's a lot of people getting started, and there's value there. There's ways that you guys can, exchange value. But I would find the top 2 or 3 investors in each meetup or RIA, and I would say, hey, I have, I'm willing to put forth sweat equity. I don't have money, but there's nothing I'm not willing to do as far as time. What can I do? How can we partner on deals, right? I would get out there. I would start door knocking. I would start speaking to mailmen and mail women, right? I would start driving for dollars. I would get these properties. And if you have a little bit of money, you can skip trace these people. You can Google them. There's so many. One of the best resources is resourcefulness. I forgot where I heard that, but it's always stuck with me. Yeah. One of the best resources is resourcefulness. So I would start building a buyer's list. I would start door knocking. I would network with top investors, figure out how we can start partnering on deals. I wouldn't go crazy and start sending out direct mail, but I would use my phone and I would use internet access, and I would smile and dial. I would door knock. I would smile and dial.
I like that. Never heard about it.
I would smile and dial, man. I mean, the phone is such a powerful weapon, Haim. I think we just take it for granted. Of those 5 to 7 hours, if I had a full-time job, I'd be spending 4 of those hours talking to people and the other couple hours sharpening the axe.
Got it.
That's literally what I would do. So door knock, calling people, letting people know what I did. And so much of it, I think, is just mindset. Is I'd set a goal. I'd put myself out there. I'd have people hold me accountable, and I would expect to have results by that day. And I just keep going. I just keep grinding that's getting started. It's interesting, man. I have mixed feelings about the word grind and hustle. I think that's so glorified now. And to a certain degree, I get it. But you and I are lifestyle guys. Yeah. We got in this business for, lifestyle. Our families, our reasons, our travel, whatever it might be. And so I think there's a time to grind and hustle. But for me, that's not what I want every day to be like. But when you're getting started, you got to sacrifice. You got to put in that time because you're not going to get to where you want to go without doing something different.
Yeah, 100%. You have to grind and hustle at the beginning, not for the next 5 to 6 years. You have to, I guess the key word is you have to put in the work. You have to earn it. You have to change something. If it means, again, you need to sleep less and you need to find the time to do it. So I 100% in agreement with you.
I think leveraging, one of the things that I didn't mention is there's so many webs. I would just leverage social platforms. I'd leverage the Craigslist of the world. And that's not a social platform, but I'd leverage all these sites to just connect with people. I'd make offers. I'd just make offers and I would just throw stuff on the wall if I was getting started. And I didn't have any experience or knowledge, because that you're going to learn so much more from doing than from reading and from all that. So I don't think it's as hard as people make it to be. I think the people that fail in this business are just not committed enough, and they're not taking the right types of actions. I think if you have that commitment and you put in the time and you sacrifice, it's not if you're going to succeed, it's when.
Got it. And if you're willing to do it for a long period of time. So to be consistent.
Consistency. Yep.
For sure. Listen, Alex, thank you very, very much. I think, again, I always enjoy the conversation with you. And even if nobody else will find value, which I doubt it, I got a ton of it every time we speak.
My friend.
It helps me grow. And it's just fun to speak with like-minded individuals that kind of share the same values and the same wavelength length. So I really appreciate it, man.
I agree, brother. I thank you for the opportunity, man, because this is, I genuinely enjoy doing this. I really do. And hopefully it connects with at least one person out there. I know that that's both of our, that's the reason we do this, right? We're not selling anything. We just want to connect and help people and just have them pay it forward. You know, I think that's how we, I'm more interested these days in having conversations like this with people that have access to so many people, because you and I think can create so much change and so much impact in our communities, and it's a ripple effect, you know? And so if we could just continue to put out good content and share positive messages, encourage people, anybody that's watching this, that's going through adversity, success is on the other side if you remain consistent and you plug into Heim, you plug into resources like this, and just know that, man, I just recently I had some adversity that struck that but when you're aware of it, you know that it's just a mindset thing. It's meant to make you stronger. There's a lesson learned. There's an opportunity. There's every experience we have, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, is meant to, to just shape us into the person we're becoming the best version of ourselves. So thank you, man. That's all I'll say. I really appreciate our friendship.
Absolutely. Same here, man. Thank you.
All right.